Well, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has received some amazing early voting data out of the state of Virginia, which might end up being a swing state. Trump is doing a telephone call with Glenn Youngkin tonight, and he needs to go to Virginia for an official rally. That's probably going to be happening sometime in October, but there was a lot of enthusiasm for Virginia, the early voting kicking off, and everyone was wondering, was it good for Trump? Was it bad for Trump? Well, if you take a look at the early votes by the district, all of the top districts leading in terms of the early voting, they're all heavy Republican counties. Take a look at this. District 1, which is a Republican lean by 6 points in terms of the overall county, they got the most early votes. District 6, Republicans by 14. District 5, Republican by 7. District 9, Republican by 23. And then all of the other Democrat, there's one that's Republican plus 2, but pretty much all the other counties getting less of the early votes are Democrat counties. So this data shows that Trump has a lot of enthusiasm in the state of Virginia. And these numbers show that early on, Trump is looking very good in terms of the early voting. Certainly, we would expect the early voting to not be nearly as much of a blowout this time as it was in 2020, based on a number of things. Trump saying, oh, you can go vote early. He's really embraced that. And also just the idea that a lot of liberals that were scared in 2020, so they stayed home, a lot of them will just go to the polls rather than do the early voting. But nonetheless, there still should be more liberals early voting than Republicans. That we can guarantee pretty much. But in terms of this, you're talking about all the districts that lean Republican having the most early votes and all the enthusiasm coming out of Virginia. This is good news. This is very, very good news for Trump. This is the true data. It's all the Republican lean districts, and you can see that all getting the top overall votes, and then all the Democrat districts, they're at the bottom in terms of that. You can see jurisdictions voting for Biden saw EV turnout up 64%. And now in comparison, voting for Trump saw the turnout up 83%. EV means that he counted mail-in and in-person. So there's a higher turnout at this point for Trump. Although I don't know why he'd be comparing it to, I guess he's comparing it to 2020 Biden. I mean, a little bit confusing there, but Trump is getting significantly more hype in 2024 that he got in 2020 in the state of Virginia. That's the narrative there. And again, some of that is Trump embracing the early voting, so the numbers inevitably are going to be better than his thoughts on it in 2020 and what he told Trump supporters to do in 2020. But also some of this is legitimate hype and what happened in 2021 with Glenn Youngkin. And now all of the numbers have come out of Virginia from the polls that I've seen. If it is true where they've got Kamala and Trump basically tied in terms of their approval rating, I think Trump is going to have a decent shot to win the state because they've got Youngkin right now plus like 18 in terms of approval rating. That's a Republican in the state of Virginia. That's not nothing. Now, it doesn't guarantee Trump's going to win, but Youngkin obviously endorses Trump. And the fact that it's not like Virginia is this crazy. See, if Trump had lost Virginia by like 16 or 17 points, I'd say there's no way. But the fact that in 2016 he barely lost it, 2020 it got ballooned up to around 10 points, but it's still manageable. It would be a huge turnaround, but it can still happen. He could still win the state by 2 or 3 points. You can see breaking pro-Trump Virginia counties see a 19-point enthusiasm advantage over Democratic-leaning counties compared to 2020 on the first day of early voting. So this is a good look at what those numbers we're talking about. Day 1 of Virginia early voting shows a 19-point turnout discrepancy in favor of GOP-leaning counties, and that's exactly what I was talking about in terms of that data. You can see 83% to 64%. And so that's what really this means. It means all the Republican counties in terms of the early votes. Obviously, we would expect these counties that are lean Republican for Trump to get more votes. If it's a +6 Republican county, Trump's very likely going to beat Kamala. +14, he's going to beat her even more. These are the counties we want to see really ramp up the votes. And they were trying to say, well, it was all Fairfax, which is, you know how these states work. There's going to be 2 or 3 huge liberal pockets that have crazy population. And libs were trying to cope with the enthusiasm increase we saw on day 1 of early voting in Virginia. And they were trying to say, well, it's because of Fairfax. And there's data that says, no, it's really spread out. And a lot of the Trump counties, actually, they're the ones that are reporting the most votes on day 1. Now, it's just day 1. But still, this is something we would not see in 2020. We wouldn't see anything close to this. So this data is clearly different. and it is showing much more Trump support. And I do think a lot of these polls, like, people are going to be blindsided by this. It would not be surprising if Trump won this state. This is just how it is at this point with Harris and how weak of a candidate she actually is. You know, I was reading something from Axios, and they were talking about why isn't Trump doing more rallies? And I saw someone, I saw it on X, and they were like, gee, I wonder why. And they referenced the assassination attempts, of course, on why Trump wouldn't be doing more rallies. And I read the article. They didn't mention any assassination attempt once, of course, in the article. But they were talking about, oh my God, they were like, Kamala Harris, we've seen she's been able to rally her base. What is Trump going to do? He needs to have more rallies. How has she been able to rally? She barely even does anything. I mean, this is a complete joke. So when it comes to this, and you're right now, I was looking at the overall odds. It still has Harris at around an 88, 89% chance, Trump at around a 12% chance, give or take, Democrat, Republican. And recently you can see at a certain, I mean, Jesus, man, at a certain point, like in mid-July, Trump had a 55% chance to win Virginia. And I can say right now, I think this is probably going to keep going up. I mean, the numbers we've seen, the few polls, if there's some more major polling that has Virginia relatively close, I think we are going to see Virginia start trending to be more of a swing state, just like we saw in midsummer before they made the major switch. And obviously, this is exactly what Democrats wanted to happen, right? There's no actual change in terms of how good the leadership is within this administration. This is all just total smoke and mirrors, and it's all through mainstream hype. Like the idea that, oh my God, Trump had a 50% chance to win Virginia 2 months ago, but now it's down to 12. What really changed? Well, nothing really changed. They just started banding around Kamala Harris. It is crazy how it seems like the media still controls so much. Although I do think Trump has a chance to win Virginia, it's just infuriating. It's like they get rewarded for what has she done? Like what has she done in the last 2 months to really? And then I saw someone. This is their new cope, because I mean it's basically impossible to explain. You see her approval rating, and it just looks like a straight vertical line. And then of course Republicans ask, I mean, this is absurd. What has she actually done the past 2 months to change it? And then the liberal dude was like, oh, now people know her. They've been able to, the world has been opened up to see who she is. She's been VP for 3.5 years. That's not how this works, right? It's not like she's this unknown commodity. And no, it's just like, it's just all fake. Like they have to push her because of how bad Biden was. And now they're all in on her and she has to win. And there's just totally undeserving. She didn't do a single thing in any of the primaries. And we have to deal with this where Trump goes all the way down. But I would expect on Polly Margaret Trump to go back up to around 20 to 25% in the state of Virginia. Based off of these great early voting numbers, they were saying it's all Fairfax. Well, no, not really. It's actually not. It is spread around the state, which is better for Trump. You want it to be rather than concealed in the big-time liberal, the heavy, Democrat population areas. Virginia, that's like right next to D.C., where all the liberals are. So this is good numbers for Trump. I mean, these are small, vote counts right now. But when it comes to early voting, we did think it was going to tighten a little bit. But right now, what we're seeing out of Virginia, what we're seeing out of North Carolina, Arizona, these are all very bullish signs for Donald Trump. And the only thing they can cling to is all the fake polls. They talk about Quinnipiac polls. They talk about YouGov, all the pollsters that got it so wrong in 2020 and 2016. And it's like, if you want to keep bashing your head into a wall over and over again, go ahead and believe Quinnipiac just like you believe Quinnipiac in 2020 when they had Biden up by 10 in Florida, right? Do you believe that? How'd that work out? Did that turn out well? Wait, remember when they had Biden up by like 8 in Ohio? Did that one work out? I don't know. Did Trump win Ohio in 20? I don't remember, man. Maybe Quinnipiac was right. I don't know. I'm picking on Quinnipiac because it was so bad, but there were other ones like ABC News. Wait, ABC News said that Biden was going to win Wisconsin by 17. Did he win by like over 15 or something? I forget. I don't remember. Oh wait, he won by less than a point. Oh, they're close enough, right? It was close enough. So no, they're an A+ pollster. They're an A+ pollster. They only got it wrong by 16.5 points. Oh my God, Quinnipiac is a top 20 pollster. They only got Florida wrong by 21 points. It's basically within the margin. That's within the margin. But I mean, you just see how ridiculous this is. I'm being sarcastic. But yeah, so this is really good news out of Virginia. And we'll have to see if this continues. It looks like it's continuing in other states, but Trump doing a lot better. Everyone's like, it's Fairfax. No, it's not. It's spread out. It's good for Republicans. And all the top Republican counties, they're first, even in the early voting, which normally is controlled by the Democrats. It is just day one. We'll see how this evolves over time. But right now, the enthusiasm normally always favors Trump. I would expect Democrats to creep up there in terms of the early voting just because they do the early voting more than Republicans. But still, there is enthusiasm in the state of Virginia for Trump. It's going to be key that he keeps this up, though, through this entire process. And then you get the big day of voting, which obviously Trump will win that. The question is, can he get enough of that inner city vote to switch? Or maybe they don't go to the polls. Maybe they're not as enthused this time in Virginia. Can Youngkin convince people in the suburban areas of Virginia to potentially vote Republican? That's going to be very key. So we'll have to see what ends up happening when it comes to that. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.